In the middle of September, clouds were thick over the Klondike, and Tony Beets, who was king of the Klondike, was in a hurry to reach his 5,000-ounce goal. His trial didn't lead to anything, though. After finding this scary thing during the gold rush, is Tony Beets' life over? Let us find out. It looked like a big problem as soon as they started digging, but Tony was still hopeful. His main goal was the 80 pup cut, where more than 500 oz of channel gold had just been found. As long as Tony could keep the gold coming in, the veins looked good and paid well. Tony only had 900 ounces though, and the weather was making his plans fail. As it rained, the field turned into a messy mess. No matter what, Tony, who was used to being in charge, couldn't help but think about how it would affect their work. He knew just how dangerous it was, and now he had to face a new truth. This man's drive really moves me, but this task was a lot bigger than his. Tony had already planned to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 weeks ago. This showed how determined he was to get through anything that stood in his way. He did things like double the flow of water from the trommel to fit in with the area. It was definitely an even bigger risk. It was a simple goal: get more gold. Tony was responsible for things that happened earlier in the year because he was always eager. Still, the settling ponds weren't strong enough, and there were already signs of trouble there. Over the radio, the team said that several dikes had been broken. Tony had to make a tough choice. He had to shut down the business so he could raise and secure the dikes. In the gold rush, it took a lot of time to make the move that had to be made. They worked hard and sweated to keep water from getting where it shouldn't, because the 80 pup cut had to happen right away. Once more, the water levels were going up and Tony was against them. He couldn't let the weather decide how much money he made in mines. He told you very clearly that you shouldn't mess with your ponds. Tony told his team that they needed to start working on the project right away. Nick, a trustworthy member of Tony's team, was told to keep a close eye on this needless piece next to the pump. It never stopped raining, and the water kept coming. Tony clearly cared a lot about the dikes, and everyone needed to move quickly. He thought about how hard things were for them, and was afraid that he would sink. I believe that being patient and alert are the best things to do in this case. Nature was fighting back, and Tony was in the middle of it all. It became clear that looking for gold wasn't a fun game of cleaning bright little chunks on the patio. It was a battle with time, the weather, and AM's moods that were always changing. When I think about these problems, I can't help but wonder, will Tony Beets be able to get to his 5,000-ounce gold goal? Of course, the 80 pup had its own sparkle, but rain and rising water were against him, so his chances were not good. He was fighting to stay alive while the sound of machines could still be heard all over the area. Their digger got stuck in a settling pond. Tony knew that they would lose a lot of money every day if this big machine couldn't do its job. They had no choice but to stop. Sure, it was a bother, a huge trouble, and there was no doubt that the digging would have to stop until the problem was fixed. But Cousin Mike found a way to make things better. He tried his best when he got there in the morning, but his digger ended up going straight into the water. This caused more trouble. Tony and 2 other excavators went on an emergency rescue because they needed to find a way to help. They worked very hard, but it didn't help. It was time for troops, and Tony didn't think twice about sending in the 18T D6 dozer and the huge 115T D1. The question then was how to get that refuse-to-move backhoe out of the bog. Tony made a plan that worked perfectly because he had been digging for a long time. The first thing that had to be done was to pump out the water. To do this, the screen showed scenes of relief workers getting the stuck digger out of the way. The D6 dozer was hired to move the tailings, and a simple ramp was built to help with the rescue. They had to walk a fine line between machines and nature, and Tony Beets was determined to be in charge of it. The setting pond became less like a bog as the plan moved forward. He noticed that things were going in the right way. Exploring this swampy area visually also showed how hard things were for the workers on Paradise Hill. As the work with the backhoe went on, I couldn't help but wonder if this was another waste of Tony Beets' time. On top of that, the constant enemy Klondike weather has already slowed down work on Paradise Hill for a whole week. Even though things were getting tougher, Tony was still focused on his 500-ounce goal and stayed positive. Earlier, the backhoe problem caused them to lose about 2 hours of work. It looked like Mike's cousin was to blame because he drove the digger into the mud by accident. When Tony replied, he didn't mince words and said that Mike was stuck because the other person wasn't paying attention. With an operation being held up and a digger getting lost, will Tony Beets and his crew be able to bounce back? It was clear to him that some of his problems were caused by not paying attention to certain things. Some people made the situation funny by telling him he had to describe everything in English, Dutch, or Finnish. The task of rescuing Tony from tough situations naturally improved Tony's engineering skills. As the show goes on, all we can do is admire how strong Tony Beets and his team are. Tony Beets had to deal with this horrifying discovery. Could he get past it, or was it really the end for him? They were going to weigh the gold to see if they had reached their goal. Tony Beets was kind of riding a number-based roller coaster. It meant a huge amount, and the number of ounces meant even more. As they moved through the mine area, 9 diggers called out the count, 10, 30, and so on to keep the family on track. Some buyers saw that number as a sign of hope, but Tony would need more than 300 ounces to reach his goal. The count then got tense, 240, 250, 260. As he and the others went through rock after rock, the numbers kept going up, from highs to ever higher peaks. In their whole mining project, they were either right or wrong. The ounces kept coming, 350, 360, and more. In 1987, more than $500,000 was made. It was worth $850,000, taking their total to 4,006 ounces. They worked very hard for 6 days and got a great result. The 80 pups crops helped with the success in some ways. Even though Tony knew that, at least they knew what 80 pup could do. Things have been going well with that for a while now. Tony looked into the future to see if he could get an even better number. That's why it didn't matter if they had to sling for a day. As long as gold was flowing, that was what mattered. The gunslingers didn't have any trouble with it. It was clear that they were successful, and Tony could only say that if it paid well, then it was fine. It was very hard to understand, and I was afraid that the weather would get in the way of Tony's plans. Tony was pretty happy with the outcome. It was so clear that the characters were friends and had achieved success together that it made me feel like I could relate to the miners who were fighting nature to get gold. At least for now, the never-ending search for gold has paid off. Watch my older movies if you want to learn more about how the world is changing all the time.
Than before. This move showed the miners' willingness to adapt and take risks. The mining boss was known for his tough personality, known for his no-nonsense approach, and his willingness to take calculated risks. His reputation took a hit when he approved of a joke that went too far, leading to serious legal trouble. The mining tycoon's leadership style often drew criticism on the show, with one episode where he lashed out at his son Kevin for not maintaining a machine properly. Viewers had mixed reactions, but the mining leader wasn't just hard for the sake of it. He was a stickler for safety. He knew that mining was a dangerous job, and one mistake could lead to serious injury or worse. He didn't tolerate anyone breaking safety rules, and that strictness came from his desire to keep his crew safe. His leadership style was about pushing people to their limits, but it also created a lot of pressure. With big investments like his $1.4 million excavator on the line, the gold hunter felt the need to push his crew to do their best. It wasn't always easy, and it took a toll on morale, but it was the way he knew how to get results. The mining veteran never forgot his roots, coming from a modest background growing up on a farm in Holland. He moved to Dawson City in 1994 to chase the gold dream, and the promise of big money drew him to Yukon. He started as an equipment operator, gradually working his way up to managing major claims and eventually leasing out land to other miners. Even now, with millions of dollars worth of gold flowing through his operations, the mining veteran and his team saw themselves as modern-day gold hunters. The thrill of the hunt, the chase for that next big find. Beets, a mining company, hit it big at Paradise Hill, uncovering millions in gold. However, a massive flood nearly stopped everything, leaving the veteran miner and his crew scrambling. A crucial oversight in their license was part of the problem, and it fell to the leader to fix it. They had to dewater the mine, removing water from underground springs and heavy rains. Failing at this meant risking disaster. The youngest member of the team, Mike, faced his own challenge, connecting 5 giant pieces of plastic piping. The machine for smoothing the pipe ends malfunctioned, delaying them further. Mike had to heat a metal plate to 400 degrees Fahrenheit to seal the pipes together, which was crucial for draining the site and beginning the gold search. Another challenge came when Aaron hit a pole and his truck got stuck in a remote area, causing a traffic jam that halted operations. Fixing this became a priority, and Aaron knew he had to be extra cautious moving forward. Eventually, they struck gold at Indian River, where no one had found any in 4 years. Even a small find was a huge boost for the crew. When they returned to Indian River, they hit another small jackpot, 6 large gold flakes. The team leader decided to start up the wash plant, hoping for more gold. However, a helicopter inspection showed they were behind schedule and far from their goal of 3,000 ounces of gold. With high gold prices, the pressure was on to capitalize on the Yukon's potential. The team had to move a portable wash plant, the TRL, used to filter materials across the rough Yukon terrain. Transporting it across the rough terrain was challenging, requiring careful navigation to avoid damage. Once the wash plant was set up, the real digging began. Parker's crew worked on moving a large culvert to manage melting snow and ice. After careful positioning, they secured it and built up the bank to avoid future erosion issues. Back at Indian River, the team expanded the mining area to aim for their goal of 6,000 ounces of gold. Equipment issues added to the struggle, and they had to be precise in every step. They worked on placing a large culvert